Red light, green light, red light, green light, red light, green light, red light, green light, red light.
Well, folks, as I say here on the Soul Sessions, we are a very particular platform. We try our best to showcase the many talents within the wrestling world. And, this one is quite, say, absolute, because with us today on the Soul Sessions, Greig Avernus, one half of the Absolute. My friend, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure for you to have me on.
I am very humbled by your appearance, obviously. I've seen things going on with PWR Pro, and you're quite a statement there, my friend. But obviously, before we get into that, we have a way we do things here on the Soul Sessions. Every guest has a story. Every story has a beginning. Greig, how did your story begin as a wrestling fan?
Honestly, I've been watching wrestling for as long as I can remember. Really, I remember from I don't really know where it started from, but I remember as a kid, begging my parents to let me stay up late to watch the pay-per-views at silly o'clock in the morning. Sometimes they let me, sometimes they didn't. Sometimes I had to catch it the next morning when I could. But yeah, I've always watched it from as early as I can remember, and then never really thought it was something I could do. I remember, obviously, as I think most people do, taking out your aggression by kind of wrestling with your friends and stuff, in places that we probably shouldn't have been wrestling, but never thought it was something that could happen. And then at the big old age of 30, I found PWR Pro, and then things went from there, and here I am.
It's a fair journey, and journeys are fun things to go upon. And you never know where they can start. And I think with wrestling is that what I've experienced for myself and many people on this platform is that everyone has a different entry point at their age. Some when they're kids, some when they're teens, or even some in their late adult years. What is it about professional wrestling do you think has such a wide entry point for age?
I think because there's not one way to do it. So whereas somebody starting at a young age maybe has the kind of pliancy in their body and the kind of the athleticism to do the more kind of acrobatic kind of flippy maneuvers, or to sort of learn the more kind of physical aspect of stuff. Whereas coming in, like myself, coming in a bit older into training, didn't feel there was the pressure to do that. So I could come in and take it a bit slow, kind of figure out what's right for me, and not, just different ways of looking at it, of coming into it, I think, which appeals to a wide variety of ages.
Absolutely. And it's fascinating as well with wrestling, because obviously I feel like wrestling transcends the barriers of language. If you look at how wrestling is presented within Japan, Mexico, States, here, they transcend it. A fan could watch a match between Mitsuharu Misawa and Kenta Kobashi from All Japan back in the day, and then watch a match like Mystico and CML or AAA and the likes of obviously Roman Reigns out here, and you could still get the general feeling. It transcends it. Even we're seeing it now with WWE on their road to WrestleMania tour. They were just in Barcelona, and while English isn't the prominently dominant language there, they still got it. They still had fun with it. Why is it, do you also think, that wrestling has that transcendence of barriers of language as well?
I think with wrestling, so like, even I can just talk for myself. I haven't really worked anywhere that doesn't speak English. I've only ever worked in Scotland, and Wales and England so far. But even the stuff that I do, you don't need to know what I'm saying. Like, a lot of the time, you don't need to know what the words mean that people are saying. It's more the feeling that they give you that is important, and that you kind of work off of. And I think it's like most things in life, body language is so important. And I think that is what, like, entertainment's entertainment in the day, charisma's charisma. It doesn't matter if you really understand what's being said or what the story is. A good wrestler will get that across to you without that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think something you've spoken on there with body language as well. You can tell a story with your voice, but I think you could even tell a greater story with your physical body. Something I think of is like with Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher in that steel cage of Revolution. Ospreay was telling the story of how he couldn't do his high flying offense moves because the cage was too tight and he wasn't able to bounce off the ropes like he could. Or somebody like Randy Orton with the slivering of his body being the Viper. For yourself, mate, who do you think has some of the best storytellings through their body, whether it's body language or telling a story through movement of their body? Who do you think is the key of that?
I think it's a good question. One I think is probably an obvious one to look at is someone like Shawn Michaels. Like just throughout like the story of a match, you can see the different stages of just exhaustion on his body throughout the match. But then by the time he kind of hits the switch of music and just kind of collapses, you don't need words for it. It's just the physicality of him is phenomenal.
Hey, HBK, he's quite a legend, and you can see emotion. And I think another thing you can see from him as well is exhaustion is a key part of storytelling. I think of him and Flair. You could tell the exhaustion in that final switch in music that puts Flair down for his WWE career, and you sense it, emotion, the exhaustion, and that true passion behind it. Do you think that is maybe a lost art in modern wrestling? Like a lot of people are able to tell great stories with their voices. The language of body is maybe a lost art within wrestling.
I don't know if it's lost. I just think it's changed. I think there's a big influence on moments at the moment in wrestling. And people are really good at picking up on those moments and getting the moments across. But yeah, sometimes the kind of overarching kind of long-term throughout the match kind of gradual build isn't always there. But it's, yeah, I wouldn't say lost completely, but it's just changed and maybe evolved slightly as things are tend to do.
Hey, fair point indeed. As time passes by, things are always going to evolve. And, the medium of wrestling has evolved as well, from the days of you had to go to a show in person or you didn't know what happened. There wasn't no internet, to TV, to now streaming with Netflix. And I think it's something key when you said there on moments as well that, this day and age, people don't have a big attention span. I think Vine destroyed that back in the day. 7 seconds was just too much for some people. I mean, fair play to you on that part. But like, you see it in how, TikTok and hype packages are like little bits of moments of a grander story. Do you think that, with the evolution of media through the likes of Vine, TikTok, and just the consumption of media nowadays, that wrestling is now always going to focus on that few seconds that always grab people's attention more than a long-term basis?
I think for the moment, probably. I mean, it's where the world is at the minute. Everyone needs that instant gratification. Their minds can't quite handle the longer form storytelling at the minute. But I'm hoping it comes back round. Because I like that sort of as much as I like everybody, I'm slightly in that kind of brain rot side of things. I do like the longer storytelling. I may complain in the moment, but when you get the payoff after however long it is, it's a real good feeling. So hopefully we circle back to that. That would be nice.
Yeah, I think we really need to teach these youngsters. Back in the day, it was Nyan Cat, the good old days, and now it's like Skippity Toilet, and you're just like, what is up with this generation? Kids,
the amount of things my little brother says to me that I just don't understand is terrifying.
We do have the Oxford English Dictionary, but I think we might need an internet version of it just so we can translate their language into proper good old, shit posting days instead of,
I agree.
direction here. Sorry, folks. Well, I know you're here for the wrestling, but this is an existential crisis we have to touch upon as well, because that's just how things are moving. But obviously, Greg, mate, as I say, once a fan, always a fan, but you would take the extra step to go into the squared circle itself. What was the initial desire to explore the Scottish wrestling scene in itself?
Well, it was something I wanted to do a long time before I did. So I started playing rugby when I was in primary school, and I played all the way up until I only officially retired last year or the year before, after I started training. And I had a couple of injuries, pretty big injuries that kind of took me out of the game for a while. And it was during one of those, I tore ligaments in my knee. I was like, okay, I'm gonna get back, get fit, and then I'm gonna start training. And then it just never really happened. And it was one of those moments kind of leading up to my 30th birthday. I was like, look, if I don't do it now, it's not going to happen, and I'm going to be just stuck, kind of sitting in my room, angry all the time. I need a reason to hit people that is allowed. So, I started having a look. Kind of emailed off a couple of schools. Got the email back from PWR Pro, and instantly was like, that's my place.
The old PWR Pro. It's a fun place. We've had many adventures here with that place on the show. But before we get into there, obviously I want to talk about Scottish wrestling in itself. For me, really exploring it back in the day, I say that, but it was only like 4 years ago now, which is kind of insane to think about. It was, learning about the histories of people like, Lionheart, Joe Hendry, Drew Galloway, Drew McIntyre, Piper Niven, Viper back in the day. And, obviously all roads kind of do lead to ICW. I remember watching these BBC documentaries, Fight Club, I believe it was, volume 1 and 2 that produced.
Yeah.
And I thought they were so amazing to see. Obviously, people talk about, American wrestling goes back to its territory days with World Class, NWA, all those classic promotions, even, with the likes of Japan with Ricky Dozan. For Scotland, how integral do you think ICW is for like the foundations of what we have today?
Oh, very much so. I don't know if we would have as blossoming a Scottish scene as we do at the minute without kind of ICW becoming as big as they were, kind of back when they were like the big thing in British wrestling. I think, yeah, if we hadn't have had that, there wouldn't have been the kind of boom that we've got at the moment. Especially not as kind of quick and sort of as explosive as it's been. So I think they've been absolutely integral.
Absolutely, and I do love a good documentary. Like I'm happy to sit back, do editing for this, or I'm playing Death Stranding until the early hours of the morning and I need something in the background. A good documentary is great. I love a good documentary. And obviously WWE produced some great ones. Their 24 series, the likes of Damian Priest, Ric Flair, Drew McIntyre, exceptional documentaries. And even with today, we have, Queen of the Ring, a movie about Mildred Burke from the NWA back in the day, even the Iron Claw with the Von Erich family. There's not really anything that touches upon British wrestlers. Is there a particular British wrestler you would love to see get a full big movie or documentary production?
That is a question. I feel like if we're looking at the sort of like WWE side of things, someone like your Drew McIntyre would be an interesting one. Having that kind of like rise and fall and rise again is always a great story to tell. I feel like someone like the British Bulldog would obviously have, obviously not Scottish, but would have a really interesting story of this time over there. But kind of sticking more over here, someone like Grado would be a really interesting one. A sort of different side of wrestling, and kind of how kind of mainstream he's become in Scotland. Obviously such a character would be an interesting story.
It's insane, Grado, because obviously within the wrestling bubble, people know him as the guy who comes out to Madonna and everyone loses their collective shit and it's a good old time. But like for us, we know him of obviously pantomimes and Scott Squad and that versatility as well. Do you think Grado showcases, what wrestling can evolve to and spread out to, of that versatility within their palette?
Definitely. I think it also kind of shows what wrestlers are capable of to people in the mainstream media. Like, obviously, there's always a bit of looking down on wrestlers as, oh, you just do that wrestling thing. Whereas actually, no, look, we are capable of so much kind of, I don't want to say so much more, but like a wide variety of things that we can kind of do and do well. Obviously, the more comedic side of things works for him, but he's kind of Scotland's like John Cena or Dave Bautista, that sort of like crossover star. That I think we definitely have the capability to have more of. That someone like Joe Hendry at the minute is obviously crossed over into the kind of social media world really well, and is kind of getting big that way. So like he could be the next one to step into. Like I'm sure he'd be kind of more than capable of acting and stuff, and if he wished, and I know a few people at, even just in Power Pro, for example. There's definitely some characters in there that I think could try their hand at the old acting gig.
There's quite a few for sure. And I mean, who knows, maybe one day we could get Grado on like the 50 quid note or something like that, just doing the point. It's like, that's our national hero and our money as I spend it on pointless booze because that's all I do, except buy expensive wrestling merch because why the fuck not? But obviously as well, right, with Power Pro as well, it's always a great learning opportunity with the seminars they produce there. And I know the likes of Niwa, Grizzled Young Vets have been there, Mark Andrews. And also as well, you've met Enzo as well at Iron Girders as well. So I want to know for yourself, what are some of the best memories you've had from these seminars that you've attended?
So the GYV one was really good for me. Because me and Jack had a sort of like one-to-one session with them. So it was us and the Prophets of Doom. So just the four of us with the both members of the GYV, and we got a lot out of that. Like they talked us through a lot of stuff, helped us out with things that we were confident in, but maybe just needed that little extra something, which was real good. The Mark Andrews seminar was phenomenal for me. He was somebody that I'd looked up to a lot, just as a fan before getting into training. He was somebody that kind of caught my eye when watching on WWE and on stuff before. So having him come in was really cool. And the things he taught us were things that I really wanted to improve in. Any opportunity we can take to improve is something we need to do. And so it was, I think those were the two real standouts for me. But then obviously meeting someone like Enzo is always a treat. Always a treat. Definitely a character. Got some interesting stories off of him.
I'm sure he told you some good stories in between some rapping sessions and singing his music.
Something like that.
That's the joys of it, mate. And let's get into Jack Hunt. Obviously, you guys are the absolute. I want to know the story, the formation. How did you and Jack realize that you both have a singular goal and formed the absolute?
So I don't know if you've been keeping up with us, but Jack and I have both been going through a bit of a transformation, a bit of a weight loss transformation, the two of us. And so when when we first got together, we were both big lads. And I kind of saw him in training one time, and I was just like, that's a man that could... I knew that I could elevate him and he could elevate me. And so I just pretty much walked up to him and was like, right, we need to get together. And I felt like if we came together and elevated each other as I knew we could become the dominant force in Scottish wrestling. That might be a high bar to set myself, but I truly think that we have the capabilities and the potential to run over anybody that stands in front of us. And yeah, so we just got together, started working as hard as possible behind the scenes, and the kind of results of that are coming. Jack looks incredible at the moment. I'm very much getting there, and we're getting ready to take over the world, shall we say.
Hey, no complaints here, brother. And I can see it as well from yourself, socials, and Jack's well, that the transformation that you guys have made is, fair to say, fucking amazing. You know, I know from 5th of August last year until early March, you lost 40 kilograms, which is, you know, fucking fair play. It makes me look at my beer machine and think that was a bad investment. Shit. But to show that, does that think that even cements your statement to not only just the Power Pro roster, but the rosters across Scottish wrestling, that what you and Jack are focusing on is truly an absolute statement?
Oh, 100%. We've said since we got together that weakness is an infection, and it is an infection that we are here to cure. So everywhere we go, every room we step into, we are there to make it stronger, to make everybody there stronger. The best way for us to do that is to hurt you as much as possible. And like, it sounds mean, it sounds horrible, I get it, but if you really think about it, you cannot get stronger without going through pain. Every all through my life, every piece of pain I've went through, I've came out stronger in the other end. So I'm just expediting that process for everybody else.
Hey, no complaints. If it gets results, it gets results as an effective method of transformation, and it produces results. And obviously, you say getting stronger through weakness. Some people say you have to cut some elements of yourself that are weak as well. And I have to get your thoughts on this. Obviously, in Power Pro, we have new Power Pro tag team champions with the Meat Factory. But obviously, yes, a big thing out of that was obviously what happened to formerly the Par. Ross Hunter got his ass kicked by Roberts Balfour. You know, two lads who I've had on the show, I thought they were a cohesive unit. I thought they were linked at the hip and they knew what they had to do to get the results, but clearly not. Just your thoughts on what's happened to the Par.
I think Robert's done a smart thing. It was we all saw what happened. It was Ross that took the fall. It was his mindset didn't quite seem to be there in that match. He lost that killer instinct that the Par have had for so long, and that has helped them keep the titles for as long as they did. And at the first sign of them losing that killer instinct, and Ross specifically losing that killer instinct, they lost the belts. And kind of Robert did what he felt was necessary. And I'd be honest, if I was in a situation, I don't know I would have done anything different.
Well, who knows what the future holds for these two boys. I mean, I do wonder, though, if maybe Robert's going to face some consequences of his actions when Ross returns, or if he returns. We don't know, but hey, that's their situation. I think you guys have a more desirable goal right now, obviously, with you and Jack going against the Meat Factory for these tag team titles. I mean, obviously, the Meat Factory are loved. I've seen them with the people. They've hosted shows. They get a good reaction. They're lovable fellas, right? But I mean, do you think that, maybe you should divert the path of these tag titles and put them on a team with more, absolute resolve?
I mean, we've had run-ins with the Meat Factory in the past. The first time I stepped in a ring was in the Christmas showcase a couple of years ago, and I came face to face with Craig Berry, and that resulted with him lying on his back and me standing over him. Just saying. We then, in the summer showcase last year, we faced them in a 6-man tag, and although we weren't on the winning side, neither Jack or I took the fall, and neither Craig nor Kerr picked up the fall. It was some child pinning an old man that we had. So that's by the by. The next time we face each other, if it's 2-on-2, the Meat Factory can be as loved as they want. They can laugh and joke with the crowd as much as they like. That's not going to bring you wins. It's not going to bring you any closer to what you want, really, at the end of the day. We're there to hurt people. We're there to win. We're there to gain as much power as we possibly can. And if we have to run through the Meat Factory to get those belts, to get that power, then we will. I think I may be biased. Who am I to say? But I think the absolute would be the best thing for the Power Pro Tag Team titles. The titles need us more than we need them.
Oh, hey, if it's a statement by your path and you believe in it, go for it, brother. I ain't got no complaints there. But I'm a man who loves a creative mind. I like to see things happen. I like to say something and then it happens and it's physically in my hands. So let's say this, Greg. Let's say you could get the Absolute versus the Meat Factory for the Power Pro Tag Team titles, but you get to pick a stipulation. Any stipulation you want, one that you think might benefit you, one you might just think will be absolute carnage and you want to have a go at. Is there a dream stipulation you would love to have against the Meat Factory for the tag titles?
Interesting. So we all know the Meat Factory love their food. That's easy to see. I would absolutely love the chance to put them through a table full of their own feasts. So something like a table match would be wonderful for me. Or just something that opens the door for Jack and I to be as violent as we want to be. So maybe some kind of like street fight, Extreme Rules, no holds barred, the sort of something that just lets us show our true creativity and unleash the power that we know we have, that we've not quite been allowed to put out there yet.
You got my creative mind going. I can see it right now. You against the Meat Factory in a banquet brawl match with just food everywhere, cups of wine or even apple juice if the boys don't want to have a bit of that good old fruit juice there. I mean, that's an insane thing to have. I mean, who knows? Things can happen in the world of professional wrestling where we visualize them and they come to be, or maybe the Meat Factory have a tummy ache that day and they can't dare be near any food. But who knows what happens, brother? It's the thing at the end of the day. But obviously within Power Pro, there's other great things going on. Also, you got a new heavyweight champion with Tommy Cartel. He's a fun individual. He's a charismatic individual. But, Frank Gallo was loved by the fans and he didn't get the win. What do you think you could see as Tommy being the top dog essentially in Power Pro now?
I think he's going to be really good for the company and for the title itself. To have someone that's maybe a bit more focused on, the belt and on himself and a bit less scatterbrained, shall we say, is only going to be a benefit. And having somebody that has that instinct to do whatever it takes to win is never something I'm going to complain about. Does he get a bit distracted by the fans too much sometimes? Maybe. But we all have things we need to work on. We all have weaknesses that need to be purged. And I'm sure in time, Tommy will do just that.
Only time will tell, brother. Only time will tell. But obviously, outside of Power Pro, you got to experience other places. I know you went to Fair City and done the Rumble as well. You've had opportunities of some other match types as well. What's it like to leave, essentially the home nest for you within Power Pro and branch out to other places?
It was good. It was definitely an interesting experience the first time. Stepping out for the Fair City Rumble. Stepping into a new environment. Nobody knew who we were, so it was just a chance for us to make a name for ourselves somewhere else. And although we weren't in the Rumble for that long, I think we certainly made an impression. And if the FCW management aren't scared, we're always here willing to make as many impressions as needed on as many people as need impressions made on them. But yeah, no, it was good. It was a good experience to get out there to, hurt some more people, get a different taste of things.
I think that's the beauty of Scottish wrestling in general, is it's so varied, like a good old pick and mix. You have, Power Pro, you have ICW, you have Girders, you have Attitude Pro Wrestling, Community Pro Wrestling, you have Bleeding Gums Wrestling. You have the full, essentially the whole cake. You have the whole layers, you have the whole variety, you have everything at your disposal. Is there anything that you would love to experience within Scottish wrestling that really caters to yourself, Greg? Is it something, a company or a champion? Is there anything out there that you really want to go and explore within our scene?
That, yeah, most likely. I think ICW is always an interesting one. Always a thought that's there just for the experience and the sort of who they are. You kind of always want to try that out. I've had my eye on Arcade Violence for a little while now. So I would love the opportunity to, tussle up with those boys, see how that goes. Yeah, I think out with ourselves, out with Power Pro. I think for me, having a go at Arcade Violence would be fun. If not, I would love the opportunity to work in Discovery. Being local to, like, from Edinburgh and being local to Portobello, where they normally run nowadays. I think that would be a lot of fun. Get some of the family and the maybe get some of the old rugby boys down and show them just what I've become.
Oh, well, I mean, Discovery do have new tag team champions with the good times of Rob Stowe and Monstrum. I mean, maybe you and Jack could have a fight with the good time boys.
No, wouldn't be a good time for them, that's for sure.
Well, who knows what will happen there. But obviously, Discovery is quite an important company as well, especially to Edinburgh as well. I'd love to know as well, Greg, obviously, Edinburgh has the Fringe, the festival of festivals, where our streets are crazy, we don't get our bins taken out, and everything's sky high in prices.
Yes.
Fucking yay. But do you think wrestling could have a place at the Fringe Festival?
I think the Fringe is the perfect place for a wrestling show. There's so many, like, such a variety show. There's so many things you can do with wrestling as well. So the last year's Fringe, I went to see the Mythos show that Daisy's in. I went to see that a couple of times, and it just fits so perfectly. So, like, even something like that where it's maybe not pure a wrestling show, it's like a theater show with the wrestling elements. It fits in perfectly. But I also think just a wrestling show, there's so many interesting venues, I think, in Edinburgh that could be used as a sort of like pop-up wrestling venue. I would love to see that. I think it'd be perfect.
That would be fun. And it's also an excuse for me to actually leave my house and be like, I have to venture into town and see the Fringe because there's actually something I want to see that's not going to drain my wallet. And
I
obviously,
tend to avoid the town
it's a bad
all
time.
through the month of August.
Yeah, it is literally, it's like, this is the exclusion zone. We don't go in here. We stay behind the barricade and we watch as our bins pile and pile because no one wants to fucking take them out. That's the joy of the Fringe. Folks, international, now you know what the Edinburgh Fringe Festival is. It's bad time for us as folks. But obviously, Mythos Ragnarok, they covered the Norse mythology with their wrestling performance, and it was amazing. I loved it, been twice, and just to see how people react to it, it was fun. But do you think there are maybe some other stories that could translate well with a merge of wrestling, like maybe like Macbeth or a Romeo and Juliet type? What's your thoughts, mate?
Yeah, that could be quite interesting, actually. Doing something more kind of less sort of like war-based, like the kind of Ragnarok type of stuff is something, yeah. Seeing how you could bring the drama of wrestling out in something like that, I think could be. Macbeth is an interesting one. Not in a theatre, so I can say it. That's that would definitely be a fun vibe. But yeah, I think there's plenty of stories throughout all different mythologies. So you got like the Greek mythologies, Celtic mythologies, all sorts of stuff that there's a whole host of stories that could be told through wrestling. And I think the Mythos show has really tapped into something. And I personally, I hope it just grows and grows and grows because there's so much potential for that side of things. And yeah, as long as they're running, I'll keep going to watch the shows because it's perfect. Just what you need.
Absolutely, man. Is there a particular mythology you love to see Mythos tackle next?
I think the Greeks, obviously, there's so much that's already known, sort of similar to Norse, where they're the sort of two kind of mythologies that have that are in the kind of mainstream knowledge more. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the like logical next step. But there's also a lot of really interesting sort of myths and legends and stuff within like Scottish and Irish, so the sort of Celtic mythologies. There's a lot of interesting kind of stories to tell in there. Lots of like different creatures and stuff throughout that mythology that I think could be really interesting to look into, and just to see if there's anything that could be taken from it.
I think that's the fascinating things with these myths, is that they're so great stories that they can translate to any meaning. And that's why you see people adapt to TV shows and movies, you know, like the Celtic myth of the Quinnic, that would be a fantastic translation of a myth into a character of the weeping whales or something like that. And it's the joy of it at the end of the day. I mean, I hope Mythos maybe tackle Greek only so I can just see like, oh, I just saw Poseidon do a buckshot lariat to Zeus and it was fucking awesome. Like that would be like my highlight of the week. That's all I need.
Great.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell Meltzer, this happened. Give it 5 stars. It happened it happened at Edinburgh Uni in Surgeon Hall. Beat Block C. It's like the Tokyo Dome, but more of a shite hole. Give it Meltzer. I mean,
you said it, not me.
Hey, observer. I'm sorry. Hey, my sources are reliable. It's Big Danny down by the docks. He's a good source. He knows all my stuff, and that's just the joy of it, as well as that your environment really does influence what you love and enjoy and can develop, and that's just a great aspect of it. Do you feel like we're seeing evidence of that with wrestling, with how popular it is on being on Netflix? People are attending shows more than ever, even on an independent level. Is this really wrestling's new golden age?
I definitely think so. It's definitely, I think we're on the cusp of a new, like, boom period. Like, I think we're just about to hit something really, really special, I think, within wrestling. So the British scene is incredible at the minute. Like, there's just shows everywhere. Like, I'm doing a lot of traveling about the country this year, and everywhere I'm going, I'm like, oh, I could go. There's a show here, there's a show there. So many different places that I'm hoping to step into and have a look at and see what's about. And with obviously WWE coming onto Netflix, I think AEW has just signed something with Prime. So it's not a niche closed off thing anymore. It's now open to pretty much everybody, which can only be a benefit. I'm now having friends that aren't into wrestling talk to me about wrestling stuff, and I'm like, what's happening here? It's brilliant.
It just shows the medium's evolved, and whatever way it is, I think within British wrestling, yourself and Jack will be an absolute statement within it, and that's something we're going to be seeing, my brother. But you know what? Before we finish up here, one final question, my friend. It's been a pleasure to have you on the Soul Sessions, of course, and a true honor of myself to have you here. I want to know, we've got many great tag teams up and down the country. I know you've mentioned Arcade Violence, but let's put them on the back burner. I know you want them, but they have to wait in the wing. Is there any other British team that you would love to face as a tag team? Sunshine Machine, Greedy Souls, Subculture. Who is on your list?
Subculture is definitely, I think, off the top of my head, they're probably the kind of number one kind of for me at the minute. I think me and Jack could have a lot of fun throwing those lads about. But speaking of right now, my focus and Jack's focus is purely on the Meat Factory. We need to release the tag team, the Power Pro tag team titles from their greasy fingers, and put them somewhere where they can be kind of treated like the prize that they are.
Well, when you do get those titles, just have plenty of wipes on hand. You never know what culinary expertise those boys are indulging themselves in. There might be some grease stains really dug in the leather of those straps, mate. I mean,
they'll be getting deep cleaned for sure.
Good plan, brother. Good plan. Well, folks, if you have loved what you've heard of Greig and obviously of his tag team, The Absolute, I will put a link to his Instagram down below. Click it, follow him, see his journey. And when he does get those tag titles, you can say you were here, right here on this episode, where you heard of his mission statement. Well, folks, as a Scotsman always says, finish up your drink, because I'm going through every bottle of Jack I have because it's getting too expensive and I need to just forget it and leave it in the past. It's beautiful. Thank you as always for tuning in for another episode of the Soul Sessions. Boom.
Now I'm out there here too. Gonna live like animals do. No more laws and no more rules.